Hey, afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Shut Up and Do It podcast, the place you can come and hang out with us while we go through all things real estate with a focus on bringing you top quality topics and speakers, all who believe in a get-it-done manner. I'm your host, Nick Aalerud, creator of the Complete Deal Flow System and a principal with AA Real Estate Group, and I function as an educator and active single-family and multifamily real estate buyer in the Boston area and beyond. I can't tell you what a treat this is today to have this gentleman here on the podcast. This gentleman's name is Lee Arnold. He is a national lender. He's also been investing in real estate for 26 years. And that is still credible because he's only 32 years old. I don't know how he does that. He has scaled his businesses. He has a corporate philosophy, which we should all try and replicate. And honestly, Lee, I'm thrilled to have you on, man. Thanks for being on today.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you want to start, Lee, by just kind of sharing with your story? How'd you even get into real estate? What was your passions like? How did it come about?
Yeah. Well, first of all, welcome everybody. Glad to have you here, and I'm glad to be here with you. I had an old assistant, and she used to say, Lee, if you're here and I'm here, technically it's our time, not your time, and I never forgot that. So I appreciate everybody's time and being here. And if you will forgive me, give me some grace. I am battling some congestion today, so my voice is going to be all over the place. I was in 1996, so it's actually been 23 years that I've been investing. In 1996, I was working at a grocery store. I was a bag boy making $3.90 an hour, and I was putting myself through community college. So my plan was to get my AA degree and then transfer to a 4-year university. And then I was pursuing marketing and finance was kind of the path I was going on. But I wasn't a big fan of school. I wasn't a big fan of college. I've never been a book guy. I'm more of a get in there, get your hands dirty, and just start throwing stuff around and see what sticks. Not a great business philosophy, by the way, but something that I knew I needed something a little bit more hands-on, more tangible, because I grew up on a farm. So I'm a farm kid, right? So if something needed to be done, I fired up the tractor and I mowed it down or I baled it up and I did something with it. So sitting in Philosophy 101 was not my idea of success path. But working at the grocery store, my shift was 3 to midnight. And when you come home from work, you don't just immediately go to bed. You eat some dinner, you watch some TV, you kind of relax a little bit. So when I get home at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning and turn on the TV, the only thing on is infomercials. And if you guys remember back in the 90s, infomercials were, get rich in real estate, get rich quick. I still remember the get rich selling little tiny ads, if you guys remember that. And so I saw this infomercial that said, hey, learn how to invest in real estate. Now, my grandfather had done pretty well in real estate. I didn't know anything about it, but I was interested in it. So I picked up the phone, called the number, went to the free event at the hotel, got the hard sales closed to race to the back of the room and give them all of your money. The only difference was I didn't have any money. So I wrote them a rubber check and I said, if you'll hold this check for 7 days, I'll find the money. I don't know where, but I'll find it. I had just recently read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which had just come out. And in that book, it says, poor people say, I can't. Rich people say, how can I? So when I saw this opportunity to learn about real estate investing and I knew I didn't have the money, the question that went through my mind is, how can I? So I wrote the check and said, I'll figure out the details later. And I wrote the check. And for the next 7 days, I frantically went to everybody I knew to raise thousands of dollars to cover this training. Turns out I was not a real strong money raiser back then because I struck out with every single person I knew. Nobody would give me the money.
What was your pitch back then to those guys?
My pitch was, I'm going to be a real estate millionaire, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to be part of my journey, which was a terrible pitch. Nobody bought. Not even my parents or grandparents bought this pitch. So I called the worst person you can call when you need money, and that's a bank. And so I called my banker at Bank of America years ago. And I said, Lynn, I need money to cover this rubber check that I wrote, which she wasn't happy about. Long story short, I ended up refinancing my automobile because it was the only thing I had that had any equity. And that gave me enough money to cover the rubber check that I had written, go to the 3-day training, and learn the systems techniques. It also left me enough money to put earnest money deposit down on my first deal. So I go to the training, I write an offer on a piece of real estate, I get it under contract, and now I'm right back to the same problem. Okay, now I've got this great deal. Where am I going to get the money? And that has become kind of the resounding theme of all real estate investors that I've encountered is it's not so much finding the deal that's the challenge. It's where am I going to get the money when I've found the deal? That tends to be the challenge. So I wrote the offer, and again, long story short, I got a private money lender to fund the deal. So now I'm 18 years old. I have a private money lender that funds the deal. He gives me money for rehab. I then go in and spend the next 6 months doing all of the work myself. We bought the house for $35,000, put $15,000 into it. And we sold it for $79,000. So now, this is back in the 90s where we just made 18 grand. And that was a lot of money at that time, especially when you're an 18-year-old kid. So I did something that day after I got this check. I did something that day, and my parents were very excited. I dropped out of college. And my parents just said, why did you drop out of college? I said, because I'm going to be a real estate millionaire. And it was at that point that my fate and my path had kind of been determined. And I said, you know what? I love real estate. I love what it can do. I love what we as investors get to do through real estate. And it's been my path. And that's what we've been doing ever since. In 2000, I was approached by a marketing company. And they said, Lee, we like your story. We like what you're doing. Can you put together a course where you teach other people how to do what you've done? So I wrote my first info product back in 2000 called Endless Wealth, which taught people how to purchase real estate via a short sale. So instead of going down to the foreclosure auction and buying it where you have to have all cash and compete against other investors, we just started doing short sales where we would go knock on doors of homeowners that were in default. We would negotiate the underlying lien with the lender, and then the lender would take a substantial discount and we'd buy it at significantly less than they owed. So we started putting on events nationwide, and we had thousands of people that were coming to our event, but they all said the same thing. Where do I get the money? Where do I get the money? So in 2002, I started doing private money lending. When the market crashed in 2008, and I heard a little bit about your story, Nick, by the time the market crashed in 2008, I had $40 million worth of deals under development and private money loans. I mean, I was as thick in it as you can imagine. And when the market came, I was almost literally wiped out. So I spent all of 8, all of 9, all of 10 avoiding lawsuits and judgment liens and deficiency judgments on short sales and foreclosures. And not only was I foreclosing on people that I had lent money to, but I had lenders foreclosing on me because I had leveraged assets to create cash to lend to other investors. So it was just this massive house of cards that unfortunately came crashing down. Now, people have asked me, Lee, if you could go back and change that, would you? And my answer is absolutely not. Best education you can get is losing millions of dollars, right? As long as you take the education and make changes and implement what you've learned. So in 2010, the market is continuing to bottom out. In most markets, it's already bottomed out. We're starting to see some flatlining of values nationwide. So people are now starting to come back into the market. We continue to put on real estate investment seminars, but now I've got a new issue. I've got people coming to my real estate investment seminars and saying, Lee, I'm finding all these great deals and I can't find the money. And I had other people coming to me and saying, Lee, I've got all this money. I'm afraid to put it into the stock market. I don't trust myself to lend it effectively. Can you help me? So we created a company back then called Private Money Bank. This is going back to 2009, 2010. So the purpose of Private Money Bank was to take people who had money and just match them up with people that needed money. And so we were kind of playing matchmaker. I guess you could say we were the Tinder of cash, right? Swipe left if you need money, swipe right if you have money. And that's what we did. In 2011, I got a letter from the FDIC that said you can't use the word bank in your name. And I argued with them, and I had my attorneys argue because you got food bank, clothes bank, blood bank, sperm bank. I figured, hey, this worked.
Good point.
Needless to say, I lost the argument, and we changed the name of the company to Private Money Exchange. And then in 2013, we decided, you know what, we need to scale this thing up. So we created our first private equity fund in 2013. We created another one in 2014. And just 90 days from now, we'll be creating our third fund, which is a Reg A fund, which is for non-accredited investors. And I'm really excited about this fund because it's a $50 million fund that many of our customers can get involved in simply because it's only $1,000 minimum investment. And now our investors nationwide will be able to participate in our fund, which is ultimately lending money to investors across the country. So to facilitate all of that, we changed the name of the company now to CoGo Capital. And that's what it's been and what we are going back to 2013 now. And we are one of the nation's largest private lenders of money to real estate investors nationwide. So it's been an interesting journey, and everything has kind of evolved as a result of encountering a new challenge. And that's what I love about business is there's never a shortage of challenges to solve. And the ones who win the most are the ones who solve challenges the quickest. And I think that that's an important element for all of us as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as investors, is to embrace the challenges because they are the very things that will create the foundation of what we grow and what we build. And I believe that the most successful companies are built on the greatest and largest foundations of failure. So when I hear people's story of, I lost everything, I've been through bankruptcy 3 times, it's like, perfect, you're the best candidate to get rich because you now know what not to do. I think the scariest investors that I encounter are the ones that have, the master's degrees and the PhDs, and they got $500,000 sitting in a 401k, and they've been very successful in their chosen career path, but they haven't been successful in real estate investing. And because of this, they tend to go at it without asking the right questions and without getting the right advisors to support them and encourage them. And ultimately they end up losing money simply because they didn't ask.
Yeah.
So
we have a couple of those, we call it like a home run disease too, where someone does their first deal, they make 300,000 because of the market, and then they think they're invincible and they go off and lose everything. Yeah.
Right. So, for the listener that's watching this going, well, I don't have any money, my credit's terrible, I've been divorced 12 times, I got 19 kids, and they're discounting themselves because of the situation. I would argue that those of you that are coming from the most challenged economic situations are most likely to be successful because you got nothing to lose, right? And that's one of the advantages of being at ground zero is you've got nothing to lose.
I 10,000% agree with you on that one, Lee. That's awesome. If you don't mind, when you went through what you went through in 2007, 8, 9, or even prior to that, I guess that was the one where you kind of got hurt. When you were remembering what you were going through on that side of it, when you were foreclosing on people were foreclosing on you, you're getting creditors, collections calls, that sort of thing, kind of big dings to your probably, pride, ego, credit, that sort of thing. Like, what were your next 5 steps from there? Like, how did you start to turn the mind around, and how did you get back on your feet?
Well, that's another advantage of being a college dropout. I didn't have any other options, right? So again, going back to when you're flat on your back and you're at ground zero, all you can do is go up. I didn't have any options. And I remember when I told my parents when I was 18 years old that I was dropping out of college to go do real estate investing, they said, well, how about you go get your degree first so that you have something to fall back on? And I think that that's the worst advice you can give somebody, because if you have something to fall back on, you're going to fall back on it. When failure is an option, but quitting is not, you've got to keep plowing forward. And growing up, I was taught that if you have aught with your brother, you go talk to your brother. Well, in that situation, my brother was my banker, it was my lenders, it was my clients. And so we had to work through and communicate to eliminate and solve all of the difficulties that we had created in this failed empire so that we could isolate those issues and rebuild. And the cool thing is, as we came out of that, with the market being where it was in 2009, 10, and 11, I mean, it was a tremendous environment to build in. And I'm of the opinion that we are going into a new market cycle where we're going to start seeing property values declining. We're going to see an increase in foreclosure, which is unfortunate for those losing those properties, but it creates a tremendous opportunity for those that are getting into the market now. I don't believe that at least in the last 10 years, there's been a better time to be getting into real estate and to begin investing or even doubling down on your investments than right now.
You were a lender as well back in 2008. So when you took your first, and sorry, I'm harping on this one a little bit. Your first 3 steps, would you say that you took when you were kind of making a comeback, right? To getting your mind right? Was it like hiring a key employee? Was it restarting up a different type of branch that you knew you could kind of operate with? What do you think went through your head back then?
You know, I think it's wise to always retreat back to the thing that made you the most money. And even though I continue to this day to be a very active investor, where we as a company have been the most successful from a financial standpoint is when our focus and our emphasis is on our customer base. And in 2008 and 9, admittedly, I had kind of lost sight of my customer base. And my customers were other investors, people that were actively investing, buying real estate across the country that we were helping them grow and learn and achieve. And so what I retreated back to, Nick, was helping people. And that's why the motto of our company, if you go to our websites, it says we get more of what we want by helping others get more of what they want. And this is even biblical, right? When your focus is internal, failure is imminent. When your focus is external, success is an absolute, because we've got to be focused on other people. So how can I help you? How can I help your clients? How can I help your community? Well, we have found that as a lender, we can help communities all over the nation because as investors, what we do is we go out and we find properties that are in less desirable condition. They've got, usually vagrants living inside of them. There's drug activity taking place there. And we are able to finance those properties for investors that are going to come in, eradicate the issue, fix them up, clean them up, and then sell them on the open market to a responsible buyer or a responsible tenant. So my mind shift, to answer your question, was I got to get back to the basics of people. Real estate is a knee-to-knee, toe-to-toe business. It's a people business. And I see all of these new products coming online with these razzle-dazzle, fancy technology platforms where you can buy and sell real estate without ever talking to a soul. And even Zillow is kind of pushing this agenda of sell real estate without having to talk to anybody or show property to anybody. And while I think that will be successful for a flash in the pan moment, at the end of the day, real estate is real, it's tangible, it's tied to people, which is tied to emotion. So if we can focus our energy and efforts on helping other people, I think success is just going to be the natural outpouring of those efforts.
I agree with you too. When you're running, national events all over the country, you have a national lending practice that you're doing, and you have can I say lending? Is that okay? Or are we going to get sued for that one? That's okay,
nope,
right?
We are a private money lender. Yes.
Gotcha. Yes. No bank, but I can say lending. All right, got it. So national lender, and also still, obviously, as a real estate investor, when did you take those steps when, it was just you, maybe a few other people in the office, and you're like, you know what, if I'm going to grow this thing, I got to do something different, right? Maybe, how did you go through that process in your head?
Well, I got my real estate license in 2001. So I'm still to this day a licensed real estate broker. I'm with Keller Williams. And I'm of the opinion that if real estate is your thing, that you need to maximize the income that's coming from your efforts. So, 8 out of every 10 houses that you buy or sell are going to be done through a licensed real estate agent. So if you're buying 10 houses a year, 8 of those deals are commissions being paid either when you buy it or when you sell it. So for those that are watching, if real estate's going to be your thing, I think that you need to possess all of the available licenses and certifications that you can get to maximize your fee income per transaction. So I had my real estate license. Well, in 2005, I noticed that there was a lot of these new loan programs. So I went out and I got my mortgage license. So now I'm buying houses at auction. I'm listing them on the MLS to sell them, and I am qualifying the buyer to get the loan. So I'm getting paid when I sell it, I'm getting paid commission for selling it, and I'm getting paid a broker fee for helping this person get financing. Well, in 2008, all of the all the companies that we were brokering loans to, they went bankrupt. Washington Mutual, Greenpoint, I can't think of the other one there. It was an orange logo. It'll come to me. So in 2008, when the market is crashing, I realized, okay, there's all these incredible deals, but there's no money. And having a background in mortgage loan origination, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to facilitate loans as a broker for private money loans. And so what I did is I went back to my book of business of investors that I knew that were buying houses for me that I was wholesaling to. And I went to my book of business of people that I knew had a couple $1 million laying around. And I said, hey, I'm going to broker loans for you to get your money deployed. And I'm going to get you money to buy these properties. So that's what we started doing, which is brokering private money from rich people to active investors that needed it. And so we started making 1, 2, 3 points in loan origination. And so you figure a $100,000 loan, $3,000 in origination, another $3,000 in commissions. And so we focused on helping our customers build their book of business. And as a result, it helped us build our book of business back up, which then gave us the financial wherewithal to now start hiring an assistant, a marketing person, a copywriter, and we just started growing the business again. So I remember this distinctly. It was August of 2008. My company was averaging about $250,000 a month in revenue, and I had about 65 employees at that point. In September, our company did $20,000 in revenue. 250,000 to 20. That's a $230,000 deficit. And in 4 days, I had whittled my staff down from 65 to 4 because I saw what was going on in the market and said, okay, this is not a short blip. This is going to be bad. And I'm happy to say that through 9, 10, and 11, we kept those same 4 employees. And together, we just kind of ground it out, and we figured out ways to make money by helping other people make money. And that continues to be our mantra. When you get rich, I get rich. But if I'm getting rich because I'm taking advantage of you, then I'm going to be poor. I don't want to keep harping on the same answer, Nick, but that's really what bailed us out of that thing, was just focusing on helping other people build their businesses.
Yeah. No, cheers to that. That's fabulous. So right now, and I love it, you took a kind of a methodical approach and you made some key hires. Sounds like sales and marketing were first when you were kind of doing that scale up. And at this point, you have quite an organization now. I mean, are you willing to share kind of maybe a top level as to how you have it structured at this day? Like, do you have the freedom and independence that you want to have on a day-to-day basis that you like? You do. That's why it's great to have honest conversations. Yeah. If you're willing to share, we'd love to hear it. Yeah.
No. Well, let me qualify that. Okay. A year ago, 12 months ago, I took the one of my bucket list trips of my dreams. And that was my wife and my 3 kids. We went to Israel and we did the Footsteps of Jesus tour, and we were gone for 10 days. And it was a mind-changing trip. I mean, it was epic. So if you are the believing type, you got to go. It really is my Graceland, right? So we're probably taking 6 to 7 weeks a year in vacation. So that's good. But I am still actively involved and engaged in growing this company. And I know that a lot of people, they get into real estate because they're looking for that passive income where I can just kind of set it and forget it, and I got $5,000 or $10,000 a month coming in without a whole lot of involvement from me. And while there's nothing wrong with that, I'm still kind of driven by what's possible, you know. And I feel like we're just scratched the surface on what can be done. And I think there's a big difference between people that are getting involved in this business for a lifestyle change and people that are getting involved in this business because they just want to see what's possible. You know, what can we build here? I don't remember who said it, but you might recognize the quote. And the quote is, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. If you hate what you do, then you are imprisoned to your job forever. So I love this stuff. I mean, I love coming to the office. I love interacting with our clients. I love going out on the road and teaching real estate investing. I love closing loans and lending millions of dollars to people that are going to take it and do incredible things in their community with it. They're going to do incredible things in their families with it. Because of their increased income, they're going to be able to tithe more, donate more to charities, and be a giver. I love the book Go Giver. That's a great book. And so I guess the way to answer your question, Nick, is I don't have a strong desire not to work.
Yeah.
That's not motivation or my goal. My goal is to, over the next 20 years, amass $1 billion in income, and then spend the last 30 years of my life giving it all away. So that I die a very poor man, and my kids get nothing other than my Bible and the knowledge that I've given them. So that's the plan.
Cheers.
But to answer the question, we are an 8-figure-a-year business, and we intend to continue to grow that, not from a revenue standpoint, but our company goal this year is to hit a new record of the number of millionaires that we create. So even the company focus is not how much money can we generate. The company focus is how many millionaires can we produce through education, mentorship, and financing. And so that's what everybody within our organization is focused on. Right now, we have essentially 4 different aspects to our company. One is education. So we go around and put on real estate investment seminars. If anybody's interested in looking at those, they can go to fundingtour.com. So we teach people through the education side. Then we have CoGo Capital, which is the private equity lending arm, and that's where people come to get funding. Then we have a company called Lake City Servicing, which services all of those loans. And then we have another company called APH, which is a construction company, because we are a very active real estate investment flipper. So last year we flipped 52 houses in our known market, which isn't at all where we want to be, but considering it gets about 4 hours a week of my time, I figure that's okay. But that is a side of the business that we are growing and scaling. And one of the reasons that being actively involved in real estate investing is important for us as an organization is we're out there recreating the hurdles and pitfalls that our customers are encountering. And then we can in real time update our education curriculum so that it's real time specific to the market and what's going on right now. We've all been to that real estate investment seminar where they're still teaching you that appreciation is a thing and cash flow on investments is a thing. No, you've got to invest based on what the market is doing now and what the greatest revenue opportunity is in that moment. And I'm right now of the opinion that it's still not a great time to buy and hold. I think the market needs to drop a little bit more. And so what we're encouraging our clients to do is to flip and wholesale and wholetail to amass cash so that when the market does dip down to a level that cash flow is much more favorable, that you've got liquidity to start buying things up and building that portfolio again. So there's never a bad time to buy real estate. There's only the wrong strategy for the current market cycle. And that's what we try to stay on top of.
That's awesome. Lee, what's been in recent years, the last 2 years or so, what's been one of your biggest learning experiences? Maybe not necessarily, you could call it a failure or call it a big learning experience that you decided, you know what, where I am now, this isn't where I wanted to, this wasn't my desired outcome. How did you go around fixing that or learning into it,
I would say that my greatest aha moment in recent years is how incredibly important surrounding yourself with the right people is. And what a lot of employers do, especially entrepreneurs, because I know that I did this, I established what I could afford to pay. So I hired my first assistant when I was 20 years old, and I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I didn't have any money to pay her either. And I figured, okay, I can afford $10 an hour, and that's it. So now, rather than looking for the best applicant, the best assistant I can possibly find, I'm looking for the one that's willing to work for $10 an hour. Well, that's the wrong mentality, because every employee that you hire, as the employer, you should be expecting a 3-to-1 return. So if I'm going to pay somebody $10 an hour, I expect them to produce work product that generates $30 an hour in income. Well, if the 3-to-1 ratio is a thing, then if I bring in employees that I'm paying $100,000 a year, they're producing $300,000 a year in income minimally. So early in my career, I believed that the greatest return on investment in business was in real estate. You buy it, you fix it, you sell it, you make $20,000. Fast forward 22 years later, the best investment in business is in people, the right people. So who's your COO? Who's your CFO? Who's your CMO? And rather than worrying about what am I going to pay these people, you got to focus on what value do these people bring to the organization and how much revenue do they generate as a result of their involvement within our operation. And that's the reason that to this day, I mean, we're staffed now, we're up to almost 100 employees within all of the different functions of our business because every employee is an investment. Mm-hmm. I hired a guy years ago to take on human resources for us. We all know it as HR, the HR department. And he referred to it as human capital, not human resources. And that was a mind shift for me because I had to look at my people as an investment. You know, by bringing them on, it's the same as buying a fix and flip house that I'm going to make 20 grand on. I'm going to take on an apartment building where I'm going to generate $8,000 a month in positive cash flow. I'm going to take on a chief operating officer that's making 150 grand, but's producing $1 million a year in revenue. So change your thought process from employees being an expense to employees being an investment where there is an expected rate of return. And your organization will grow massively simply from that mind shift.
That's awesome, Lee. That's great. In the spirit of Tim Ferriss, we do one awesome question that I tend to like, and we have all of our guests answer it. What is the best purchase you've made in the last 12 months that has been under $100?
And I'm looking around for my book, Nick.
Books are acceptable. We'll allow that.
I can't find it. I think it's at home. It's called The Making of a CEO.
We haven't heard that one yet on this podcast. Yeah, tell us about that one.
So it's written, the author is a guy that has done consulting to CEOs all over the world. And so he takes what he learned from each of those CEOs and he's put it together in a book that creates kind of like the perfect CEO. So what are the benchmarks as entrepreneurs, as business owners? Because I don't care if you're making $1 a year or $100 million a year. If you are the driving force, the creative force behind your enterprise, you're the CEO, right? So what is our responsibility to manage our teams, to lead our teams, to hold them accountable, to set KPIs or key performance indicators? What are those key performance indicators? And within every department, within every organization, you've got to have things that you're managing too. Is it number of dials per day? Is it hours of talk time per day? Is it number of leads created, number of appointments set, number of offers written? There's got to be set performance standards and KPIs. And he just continually hounds on the importance of those metrics and the benchmarks because profitability and revenue is a result of managing your people to set performance standards and specific key performance indicators. And if you hold them accountable to the things that you know ultimately produce revenue, then you can have a much better handle on the organization. And that's essentially the premise of the book. And I apologize, I don't have the author's name, but it's called The Making of a CEO.
Love it. No, great one. That's a really good one. What are you either excited about, Lee, or what's if people wanted to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you?
The best way to go about getting a hold of me, if you need money, if you're just looking to get another source for capital to buy more real estate, if you go to CoGoCapital.com, and that's COGO, CoGoCapital.com, and just fill out the little form on the front page there. You can come to us for pre-approval letters when you're writing offers to sellers or writing offers on listed property where your agent requires they have a pre-approval letter. We will give you pre-approval letters, and we will kind of teach you what you need to be doing from the offer writing standpoint so that we can lend you money. We have clients that we've lent millions of dollars to over umpteen number of years, and we'd love to be your funding source and your funding provider on your deals. If you're relatively new to the business and you would like to learn kind of the fundamentals, real estate investing 101, or if you just need a refresher course, we have real estate investment seminars going on nationwide, and we have one that's coming to a city near you. So if you go to fundingtour.com, you'll see the list of our upcoming event cities. And this is a bus tour, you guys. So we're going to put you on a bus, and we're going to take you out into the market. We're going to show you right there regionally what's going on in your market, the types of properties you should be looking for, how should you be determining what your rehab costs are going to be, and ultimately your cost of capital to get your profitability. So fundingtour.com, those two places, Nick, are the best places for them to go to really engage, interact with us, and to get started in our system and moving towards becoming one of the millionaires that we want to create this year within our organization.
That's fabulous. Lee, I can't thank you enough for your time today, man. This was awesome. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
Guys, that's it for this podcast. We will see you on the next one. So hit that subscribe button and like us to get notified. Thanks so much.